Liam Harper stepped off the shuttle and into the imposing corridors of the Tsalrax flagship. It was the heart of the Tsalrax Empire, a ship of unimaginable size, housing thousands of soldiers, scientists, and political figures. The hum of advanced technology filled the air, and the walls seemed to pulse with the energy of the alien race that ruled this sector of the galaxy. Liam wasn't nervous. He had spent years working as a diplomat for Earth. His job was to handle delicate negotiations, building alliances with alien races that could either help humanity thrive or crush them. The Tsalrax, though powerful and militaristic, were supposed to be their allies. But it wasn't easy. Peace with the Tsalrax had always been fragile, and lately, rumors of a possible rebellion within their ranks had started to surface. Today, Liam was here for another round of talks, or so he thought. He had been briefed on the importance of these negotiations, new trade routes, technological exchanges, and some joint military ventures, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to happen. He was escorted down the long corridors by two armed Tsalrax guards until they arrived at the command center. There, standing tall and composed in her full military regalia, was Commander Carissa. She was known throughout the galaxy for her sharp mind, her unyielding strength, and her icy demeanor. Few humans had ever spoken with her directly, and even fewer had survived long enough to boast of it. "Commander," Liam said, offering a polite nod. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." Carissa's violet eyes regarded him coolly, and she gave a slight nod in return. "Liam Harper," she said, her voice smooth but laced with authority. "You've come far for a simple diplomatic mission. But I have an offer for you tonight, one that will determine more than the fate of our talks." Liam raised an eyebrow. An offer? He hadn't expected this to be anything but a standard meeting. "What do you mean?" Carissa's gaze never left him, and her lips curved into a faint, almost predatory smile. "You're aware of the instability in the Empire. The threats from within are growing. I have information that could change everything, Liam. Information that could save Earth and your people from a grave danger." Liam leaned in, his interest piqued. "What kind of information?" Carissa tilted her head slightly, a gesture that made her even more intimidating. "I will tell you everything, but only under one condition." Liam's brow furrowed. "What kind of condition?" Her gaze locked with his, her voice lowering. "You must spend one night with me, Liam. Only then will I share what you need to know. You will have all the answers you seek." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, everything around Liam seemed to freeze. The thought of spending a night with Carissa was not only confusing but troubling. It was a strange request from a high-ranking alien commander, especially one known for her tactical genius and not for personal affairs. Liam struggled to form words. "I don't understand. Why?" Carissa's expression remained unreadable, though there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Perhaps amusement, perhaps something deeper. "You'll understand once the night is over, but that is my price. Take it or leave it." Liam felt a sudden rush of uncertainty. He had come for peace, for understanding, and now he was caught in a game that seemed much more complex than he had ever imagined. But something in Carissa's tone, something in her eyes, told him that this was no simple request. She was testing him, and the fate of much more than Earth hung in the balance. He took a deep breath, then nodded. "Fine, I accept." Carissa's lips curled into a smile, a gesture that felt more like a victory than a kindness. "Very well, Liam Harper. Prepare yourself. The night is about to begin." The moment Liam agreed, the air in the room seemed to shift. There was a quiet intensity that hung between him and Commander Carissa. She had made her demand clear, and now that he had accepted, the nature of their meeting took on an entirely different meaning. Carissa motioned for him to follow her, and without another word, she turned and walked through a door hidden in the far corner of the room. The heavy doors slid shut behind them, leaving Liam alone in the presence of the Tsalrax commander, a woman whose reputation preceded her. This was no ordinary meeting, and he was beginning to understand just how dangerous this night could be. As they walked through the darkened halls of the ship, the sound of their footsteps echoed in the silence. Krissa led him to a luxurious chamber adorned with alien artifacts, holographic displays, and sleek, glowing furniture. The room was unlike anything Liam had seen before. The walls shimmered with an otherworldly light, and the air was thick with the faint scent of alien flowers. "Please, sit," Krissa said, her voice smooth and confident as she gestured to a large, comfortable chair. She moved toward the opposite side of the room and poured 2 glasses of a dark, amber liquid that seemed to glow in the dim light. Liam hesitated, his mind still racing. This wasn't how any diplomatic meeting was supposed to unfold. But as he sat down, trying to compose himself, he realized that this wasn't just about diplomacy. Something much larger was at play. Krissa handed him the glass, her eyes never leaving his. "You must be wondering why I made such an offer," she said, her voice calm and measured. Liam took the glass, holding it in his hand, but not yet drinking. "I'll admit, I'm still trying to understand what you want from me, Commander." Krissa sat across from him, crossing her legs with ease. "It's simple, really. The power structures of my empire are shifting. There are factions, rivals, and political unrest that threaten not only my reign but the future of the Salrax Empire itself. I have information, important information, about a plot that could destabilize everything. But I cannot trust just anyone. You are the first human I've met who has come close to earning my trust. And tonight, I will decide whether I can trust you completely." Liam's heart skipped a beat. The weight of her words sank in. She wasn't just offering information. She was offering power, influence, and knowledge that could change the course of history. "What kind of plot?" Liam asked, his voice low and careful. Krissa's gaze grew intense, and for a moment, she didn't speak. Instead, she took a slow sip from her own glass, her eyes never leaving his. "It involves both our peoples, Liam. There are forces within my own empire who are aligning with factions outside of it. They want to overthrow me. They want to control the flow of resources, the alliances with Earth. They don't care about the future of the Salrax Empire. They only care about their own power." Liam's mind raced. He had always known that diplomacy was about more than just agreements and trade. It was about power, secrets, and the ability to influence others. But he had never been this close to such a dangerous game. "And you think this alliance, this arrangement between us, will stop them?" Krissa leaned forward slightly, her expression unreadable. "I need more than just an ally, Liam. I need someone who can be trusted to keep these secrets, to help me navigate the growing tensions. Someone who is not bound by the rules of my empire. Someone outside the political games. You were sent here to negotiate for Earth, but I've seen something in you that makes me believe you can be more." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Liam had entered this situation as a negotiator, expecting a simple meeting. Now he was caught in a dangerous web of secrets, power struggles, and political intrigue. He hadn't signed up for this, but it seemed there was no turning back now. As the night wore on, their conversation became more personal, each word carrying the weight of trust and caution. Krissa revealed more about her past, the pressures of leading an empire, and the loneliness that came with it. Ethan could sense the pain behind her stoic mask. This wasn't just about power, it was about survival. Liam couldn't help but be drawn to her, not just for the power she wielded, but for the vulnerability that she rarely allowed to show. As the night unfolded, Liam realized that his role in this empire, and with Krissa, was far more complicated than he had ever imagined. But for now, all he could do was wait. Wait for her to reveal the full truth, and wait for the next step in this dangerous game. As the hours passed, the conversation between Liam and Krissa grew deeper, more intense. She had shared more about her empire's struggles, the political unrest within the Salrax ranks, and the danger she faced from her own people. Every word she spoke seemed to carry the weight of centuries of leadership, responsibility, and a personal battle for survival. Liam listened closely, realizing how much he still didn't understand about the true scope of the situation. The Xalrax Empire was a powerhouse, but the cracks were beginning to show. If Carissa couldn't maintain control, everything, the fragile peace between Earth and the Xalrax, the trade routes, the alliances, could crumble, and the consequences of that collapse could ripple across the galaxy, threatening more than just her empire. "I never wanted this," Carissa said, her voice low as she leaned back in her chair, her gaze drifting toward the darkened window of her chamber. "I never wanted to be the ruler of an empire on the brink of collapse. But the truth is, I've had no choice." Liam watched her carefully. There was something in her words that spoke to him. It was a vulnerability he hadn't expected from someone as formidable as Carissa. She had always been a powerful, commanding presence, but now he saw the burden of leadership, the loneliness, the weight of making decisions that would affect millions of lives. "Then why not step down?" Liam asked gently. "You don't have to carry this burden alone." Carissa's gaze snapped back to him, her eyes sharp. "Because if I step down, there will be chaos. If I fall, others will rise in my place, and they won't have the strength to hold this empire together. Earth has already placed its trust in me, and I won't let it crumble just because I'm tired." Liam could hear the determination in her voice. She wasn't just a ruler. She was a survivor, fighting against the odds, holding on to everything she had built. And yet there was something about her that made him question whether there was more to this alliance than just survival. "I came here to help Earth," Liam said quietly. "I never thought I'd end up in the middle of a power struggle. But I'm here, and I want to help. You don't have to do this alone, Carissa." Her eyes softened for a moment, and she sighed. "I appreciate that, Liam. But this isn't just about helping. This is about making difficult choices. The forces against me won't stop. They think they can manipulate you, use you to get to me. But I can't afford to let that happen. Not now. Not when we're so close to achieving something that could change everything." Liam nodded, the gravity of her words sinking in. He hadn't realized the complexity of their situation. This wasn't just about the trade negotiations or political deals. This was about power, control, and survival. The truth of it was clear now. If he wasn't careful, he could become a pawn in a dangerous game. Carissa stood suddenly, her posture rigid, her expression determined. "I need to know I can trust you, Liam. If you're truly with me, you'll have to prove it. Tonight isn't just about learning what I know. It's about seeing if you can be part of the solution. Can you handle that?" Liam felt his pulse quicken. He had agreed to spend the night with Carissa, but he hadn't expected this level of testing. The stakes were higher than he had imagined. He wasn't just here to gain information. He was part of the puzzle now, whether he liked it or not. "I'll prove it," Liam said, his voice steady. "I'm not backing out now. I'll stand by you, Carissa, whatever it takes." She studied him for a long moment, and then slowly her lips curled into a faint smile. "Good, because this is only the beginning. The road ahead will not be easy, but together we can navigate it." Liam took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words settle over him. This wasn't just about diplomacy anymore. It was about trust. And in that moment, he knew he was in deeper than he had ever imagined. He wasn't just trying to broker peace between two worlds. He was caught in a game of power that could change the fate of both Earth and the Xalrax Empire. And the real test was only just beginning. The next day, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The quiet private night he had spent with Carissa had been full of unspoken words, lingering glances, and revelations. It wasn't just about the information she promised anymore. It was about the trust that had begun to form between them. And that trust was both a powerful ally and a dangerous weapon. Liam had always been taught to keep emotions separate from negotiations, to stay focused on the bigger picture. But Carissa wasn't just any alien leader. She was the heart of the Xalrax Empire, a figure both feared and admired. And the more Liam learned about her, the more he realized how deep the stakes ran. She wasn't just asking for help, she was asking for partnership, for loyalty, and above all, for someone who could be trusted to walk through the darkness with her. The sun had just begun to rise when Liam received a message summoning him to Carissa's private command center. He arrived at the designated room, the guard stepping aside without a word. Inside, Carissa was already waiting, standing at a large holographic table, her fingers tracing over a galaxy map. Liam, Carissa greeted, her voice as cold and controlled as always. I've decided it's time for you to know more. It's not just about me anymore. The entire Xalrax Empire is at risk. If we don't act, we could lose everything. Liam stepped closer, studying the map she was showing him. It wasn't just a map of planets or star systems. It was a map of power, alliances, military forces, and secret operations hidden within the Empire. Carissa's eyes glinted with something dangerous as she gestured to various parts of the galaxy. The factions I told you about, Carissa continued, her tone sharp. They've aligned with enemies from outside our borders. They're using Earth as a pawn in their game, but they've underestimated us. They believe that if they can destabilize my rule, they can break the alliance between Earth and the Xalrax. And if that happens, the consequences for your planet will be disastrous. Liam's stomach tightened. He had known this wasn't just about political rivalry, but now the stakes had become far more personal. Earth was in the crosshairs of this war, and he was the one in the middle. What do you want me to do? Liam asked, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. I need you to help me, Carissa said, her gaze meeting his. There's a traitor within my ranks. Someone close to me, someone who knows all the inner workings of the Empire. They've been feeding information to the enemy. I need you to help me find them. Liam was silent for a moment, weighing her words. A traitor within her inner circle. The situation was even more complicated than he had imagined. He had no experience with the undercurrents of betrayal on this scale, but he knew it couldn't be ignored. Do you have any idea who it is? Liam asked, trying to keep his voice even. Carissa's jaw tightened. I have my suspicions, but the traitor is good, very good. We've been tracking them for weeks, but they always stay one step ahead. Liam nodded slowly, understanding the risk. And you think I can help you find them? Carissa looked at him, her expression unreadable. You've been outside the Empire's politics for long enough to see things differently. You're not part of this web of lies and betrayal. That's why I trust you. Her words hung in the air, and for the first time, Liam realized how much was at stake. He wasn't just a diplomat anymore. He was an active player in a dangerous game. Carissa's trust in him wasn't just about their alliance. It was about survival. And he couldn't back out now. I'll help you, Liam said, his voice firm. But you need to be prepared. This will get messy, and we might not like what we find. Carissa nodded. I'm prepared, and I need you to be too. We're in this together now. We either find the traitor and stop the enemy, or everything we've worked for will be destroyed. As they stood there, facing the difficult road ahead, Liam understood that the choices they made now would shape the future of not only the Xalrax Empire, but Earth as well. The truth was dangerous, but so was the enemy they were up against. The game had changed, and there was no going back. The days that followed felt like a blur to Liam. Each step deeper into the Xalrax Empire's tangled politics revealed new layers of deception and danger. Carissa had trusted him with a task that was far more than he had bargained for, finding a traitor within her ranks, someone who had been feeding secrets to their enemies. If they couldn't root out the traitor, the delicate peace between Earth and the Xalrax could be shattered, and the future of both worlds would be thrown into chaos. Carissa had given him access to her most trusted officers and resources, but she had also warned him that everyone had a motive, and not everyone in the Empire was loyal to her. The Xalrax were fiercely independent, and loyalty to the crown was always under pressure from ambitious factions looking to control the Empire. Liam sat in a small, dimly lit room aboard the flagship, reviewing the data Krissa had given him. His eyes scanned through the encrypted reports, noting patterns and discrepancies in the flow of information. As a diplomat, he was used to reading people, understanding motives, and seeing the connections that others missed. But this was different. The stakes were higher, and the web of lies and deceit was far more complex than any diplomatic negotiation he had ever handled. Krissa had mentioned that the traitor was someone close to her, a trusted member of her inner circle. The thought made Liam uneasy. Trust was fragile in these situations. If he wasn't careful, he could end up making enemies on both sides, and his position as a diplomat wouldn't save him. The door slid open, and Krissa entered, her eyes scanning the room. She looked different today, more worn, more guarded. The burden of ruling was taking its toll on her, but there was also something else in her eyes, a determination that Liam had come to respect. "Have you found anything?" she asked, her voice steady, but laced with the strain of their shared mission. Liam glanced up from the data. "There are a few things I don't understand yet. Patterns in the communication logs don't add up. Someone has been leaking information in a way that's far too coordinated. It's not just one person. It's an entire network." Krissa nodded. "That's what I feared. We're dealing with more than just a rogue officer. This is an organized effort to bring me down." Liam looked at her carefully. "What's your next move?" She crossed her arms, deep in thought. "We need to find out who is on the inside. There are several people I trust, but it's possible that even they are compromised. I'll need you to work with my officers, but keep an eye out for anyone acting suspicious." Liam stood up and walked over to the holographic map of the galaxy on the wall. His mind was racing. This wasn't just a betrayal against Krissa. It was a threat to both their worlds, to everything they had worked for. "I can do that," he said, his voice determined. "But we have to be careful. We don't know who we can trust." Krissa looked at him, her expression softening for a moment. "I know. And I trust you, Liam. That's why I've asked you to help me. We don't have much time before the factions outside the Empire take advantage of this." As she spoke, Liam felt the weight of her trust. She wasn't just relying on him for answers. She was counting on him to help save her empire and protect the fragile alliance between Earth and the Zalrax. This wasn't just about finding a traitor. It was about survival. He nodded, a sense of resolve building inside him. "Then let's find them. And let's end this." Krissa gave him a small but approving smile. "Together, we can do it." They were a team now, bound by the weight of their mission, and Liam knew that their success or failure would determine not just the fate of the Zalrax Empire, but the future of Earth itself. The hours turned into days as Liam and Krissa worked tirelessly to track down the traitor. Every conversation, every movement within the Zalrax Empire was now scrutinized with suspicion. There was no room for mistakes. If they were going to uncover the traitor in time, they needed to be sharp, careful, and most importantly, they needed to stay united. Liam spent his days combing through encrypted communication logs, meeting with Karissa's officers, and tracking down leads. The more he dug, the more he realized just how deep the corruption ran within the Empire. It wasn't just one rogue officer or a few rebellious factions. It was a carefully orchestrated plot, with hands reaching into the highest echelons of power. But every time he thought he was close to the truth, the trail seemed to vanish. Meanwhile, Krissa had been dealing with her own battles. She had to maintain her position as queen, keep the nobles loyal, and prevent the military from splitting into rival factions. But through it all, she never wavered in her trust in Liam. She knew he was their best chance at finding the traitor. And despite the pressure, Liam had never backed down either. Late one evening, after another long day of failed leads, Liam met Krissa in her private chamber. She was standing by the window, her back to him, as she gazed out at the stars. "Anything?" she asked without turning around. Liam shook his head, frustration clear on his face. "It's like the traitor is a ghost. Every lead leads to a dead end, and I don't know who we can trust anymore." Krissa turned to face him, her expression stern but understanding. I know. It's hard to accept, but this is bigger than we thought. We need to stop second-guessing ourselves. We have to be ready to act when we finally find something. Liam's eyes narrowed. I'm starting to think someone is covering their tracks. This isn't just about leaking information. It's about control. Someone wants to disrupt everything. The Empire, Earth's alliance with us. Everything. Krissa's eyes softened slightly, the burden of leadership weighing heavily on her. And if we don't stop it, everything we've worked for will be destroyed. The two stood in silence for a moment, the gravity of their situation pressing down on them. They had been allies only for a short time, but Liam had begun to understand Krissa better than he ever thought possible. She was not just a queen. She was a woman fighting for her people, her empire, and the future of both their worlds. Have you thought about who might be involved on the inside? Liam asked, breaking the silence. Krissa sighed. There are a few people I've suspected. The people closest to me, but it's impossible to know for sure. I've trusted them for years, but I can't ignore the possibility that one of them could be the traitor. Liam's mind raced. What about the ones who've been acting too loyal? Sometimes, the most trustworthy people are the ones hiding the most. Krissa frowned. I've considered that, but there's no way to be sure until we catch them in the act. We can't risk making a wrong move. Liam was quiet for a moment, his mind working over the information he had gathered. Then, it hit him. What if we're looking in the wrong place? What if the traitor isn't someone in the inner circle at all? Krissa raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? What if it's someone on the outside? Someone with access to sensitive information? Someone we wouldn't suspect? Liam suggested. It could be an outsider feeding the information to the factions. They'd been working in the shadows, keeping us distracted. The idea seemed to click in Karissa's mind. You might be right. Someone who's been hiding in plain sight. They exchanged a glance, and in that moment, Liam knew they were closer than ever to finding the truth. But they had to be careful. The enemy was clever, and they would stop at nothing to achieve their goal. Time was running out, and they had to act fast. We'll follow this lead, Krissa said firmly. If it's the last thing we do, we'll find the traitor. Liam nodded, a sense of resolve settling in his chest. They were in this together now, and they would face whatever dangers lay ahead. The truth was within reach, and they were going to uncover it, no matter what. The tension in the Tsalrak's flagship was thicker than ever. Liam and Krissa had followed their lead, piecing together the puzzle that had been hidden in plain sight. The traitor, the enemy within, was closer than they realized. Now they had no choice but to move quickly before everything they had worked for collapsed. Liam sat in the quiet command room, surrounded by holographic displays of the galaxy and the Empire's military positions. His mind raced, processing the pieces of information that had finally come together. He had suspected this for a while, but now the truth was almost undeniable. Krissa stood across from him, her posture as poised as ever, but the weight of the past few weeks had taken its toll. She seemed more guarded, her eyes filled with determination. They had reached a dangerous crossroads. The clock was ticking. This is it, Liam said, his voice steady but heavy with the realization of their next steps. I know who the traitor is. Krissa's gaze shifted to him, her face unreadable. Who? Lieutenant Corrin, Liam said, his eyes never leaving the map. He's been accessing restricted data and sending it out in coded messages. I've been tracking his movements, and he's been in contact with several of the enemy factions. He's the one leaking everything. Krissa's eyes narrowed. Corran, she murmured, almost to herself. I should have known. He's been too eager to prove his loyalty, too eager to please. She clenched her fists, her expression hardening. I trusted him, but now we know the truth. Liam looked up at her, his expression serious. We can't waste any more time. We have to act quickly before he alerts the factions or makes his escape. Rissa nodded, her voice colder than ever. We're going to take him down tonight. The moment he's caught, We'll secure the information he's been passing on. Then we'll take back control." The two of them didn't waste another second. They immediately activated the ship's internal security, ordering a lockdown of all exits. Coran would not be able to escape. Liam stood beside Carissa, watching as her officers began to track Coran's location. Every moment counted. The pressure was mounting. If they didn't catch him now, the fate of both their worlds would be at risk. A few tense minutes passed before the message came in. "Lieutenant Coran is in the West docking bay. He's trying to leave." Carissa didn't hesitate. "Prepare the team. We're moving in." They rushed through the corridors, their footsteps echoing in the cold silence of the flagship. Liam's heart raced, and though he had been through tense situations before, this one felt different. This wasn't just about diplomacy or trade deals. This was about survival. When they reached the docking bay, they found Coran waiting by a ship, his eyes darting nervously as he noticed the approaching team. His hand hovered over a hidden weapon at his side. "Don't move," Carissa commanded, her voice cutting through the tension. "You've been found out, Coran. You're under arrest for treason." Coran froze, his face a mask of shock and fear. "You don't understand," he stammered. "I'm just trying to protect the Empire. I'm helping." "You're betraying it." Carissa cut him off. "You've been working with our enemies. You've been undermining everything we've fought for." Coran's face twisted with anger, his eyes darting between Liam and Carissa. He made a desperate move, reaching for his weapon. But Carissa was faster. She drew her own weapon and fired, disabling him with a single shot. Liam's breath caught in his chest as Coran fell to the ground. He had seen this kind of thing before, but it was different when you were so close to the action. "We'll get the information from him," Carissa said coldly as she signaled for her officers to secure Coran. "And then we'll make sure the enemy knows we're not to be trifled with." Liam nodded, a sense of relief flooding over him. The traitor was caught. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but he knew the real work was just beginning. They had a long road ahead, rebuilding the trust of the Empire and securing the peace between Earth and the Xal'Raks. But for the first time in weeks, Liam felt like they were on the right path. Together, they had overcome the betrayal, and together, they would rebuild.